My name is Sarah, and like a lot of people, I struggle with setting boundaries, especially with family. I'm the youngest of three sisters, and growing up, I was always the easygoing one, the helper, the one who would drop everything when someone needed me. It wasn't a role I chose, it was assigned to me, and I accepted it without question. My oldest sister Jenna is what you'd call a force of nature. Ambitious, successful, and always in control. She has a beautiful house in the suburbs, a husband who works in finance, and two kids, Emma, who's 6, and Liam, who's 4. On paper, her life looks perfect. When Jenna had her first baby, I was thrilled to be an aunt. I'd just finished college and was working part-time at a local coffee shop while trying to build my photography business. Money was tight, but time was something I had plenty of, so I offered to help with the baby whenever she needed. Just for a few months, Jenna had said, until we get into a routine. Those few months turned into years. Every time I tried to scale back, there was always some reason why Jenna needed me more than ever. Her nanny quit, her husband was traveling for work, she had an important meeting, she was just so tired. Family helps each other, she'd remind me, usually while handing over her kids and rushing out the door. I'd do the same for you. I believed her. After all, she was my sister, and I loved my niece and nephew. They were amazing kids. So I kept saying yes, kept rearranging my schedule, kept putting my own life on hold. Fast forward to this past year, I'd finally gotten my photography business off the ground. I was booking weddings, family portraits, even a few small commercial jobs. For the first time, I had actual income rather than just dreams and a pile of student loans. I'd moved into a slightly better apartment, one with enough space for a small home studio. Things were looking up. Then Jenna called. Her voice had that tense, clipped quality it gets when she's stressed. Sarah, I need a huge favor. My sitter canceled last minute and I have meetings all day tomorrow. Can you take the kids? I had a client consultation scheduled. A potential wedding that would have been my biggest job yet. But Jenna didn't even let me explain. Sarah, please. You know I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Family helps family, right? There it was again. That phrase, the one she always used when she wanted me to drop everything for her. I hesitated, but only briefly. Let me see if I can reschedule my appointment. You're the best, she said, relief evident in her voice. I'll drop them off at 7:30. After we hung up, I called my potential client and rescheduled. They were understanding, but I couldn't help feeling like I'd just taken a step backward professionally. This was becoming a pattern, one I didn't know how to break. The next morning, Jenna dropped the kids off in her typical whirlwind fashion. Emergency snacks in the blue bag, Liam needs his allergy medicine at noon, and Emma has dance class at 4, but you can skip it if it's too much trouble. Before I could get a word in, she was checking her watch. I've got to run. I'm meeting my new sitter for coffee before work. I finally found someone amazing, but she can't start until next week. I froze. New sitter? What happened to Mrs. Roberts? Mrs. Roberts was the older woman who had been watching the kids 3 days a week for the past year. Oh, she raised her rates again, Jenna said with an eye roll. Wanted $20 an hour now for sitting on her couch while the kids watch TV? No way. The new girl is younger, has actual childcare experience, and she's willing to do housekeeping too. Something about this conversation didn't sit right with me, but Jenna was already halfway out the door. Thanks again, you're a lifesaver. I'll pick them up around 6. The day went as they usually did when I watched the kids. We played games, I made their favorite lunch, helped Liam with his alphabet practice, and took Emma to her dance class. By the time Jenna came to pick them up at 6:45, not 6, I was exhausted but happy. The kids always brought joy, even when they were challenging. As they were leaving, Emma hugged me extra tight. I wish you were our babysitter all the time, she said. Melissa never plays games with us like you do. Who's Melissa? I asked, looking at Jenna. Our babysitter, Emma replied before her mother could answer. Mommy pays her lots and lots of money. Jenna laughed nervously. Kids say the funniest things. Come on, Emma, Liam, time to go. Something was off. I could feel it. The way Jenna suddenly rushed the kids out, the way she avoided my eyes. But I let it go, convinced I was reading too much into a child's innocent comment. A week later, I was at my favorite coffee shop working on editing some photos when I overheard a familiar voice. I looked up to see Jenna at the counter, chatting with a young woman I didn't recognize. I was about to call out to her when I heard what she was saying. "So $500 for the week, same as we discussed. You've been amazing with the kids, Melissa. Worth every penny." Melissa, the name Emma had mentioned. I watched as Jenna handed over what looked like cash to this woman who smiled and thanked her. $500 a week? That was more than I made from most of my photography jobs, and here I was, babysitting for free while she paid a stranger that kind of money? I felt physically ill. The coffee I'd been enjoying suddenly tasted bitter. I slipped out before Jenna could see me, my mind racing. All those times she'd called me in a panic because her sitter canceled. All those guilt trips about family helping family. All those rescheduled appointments and missed opportunities. Had she been lying to me this whole time? I spent the next few days trying to process what I'd learned. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to demand an explanation, but another part, the conflict-avoidant little sister part, kept me silent. I needed time to think, to figure out how to approach this without exploding. Then, as if on cue, Jenna called. Her voice had that familiar stressed tone, the one that usually sent me scrambling to help. "Sarah, thank God you answered. I'm in a complete bind. Melissa called in sick, and I have the Henderson presentation today. I can't miss it. It could mean a promotion. Can you please watch the kids? Just for today?" My heart was pounding. This was it, the moment of truth. "I'd love to help," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "My rate is $25 an hour." The silence on the other end was deafening. For a moment I thought she'd hung up. "What?" she finally said, her voice a mix of confusion and irritation. "My rate for childcare is $25 an hour," I repeated. "That's actually a family discount. I know Melissa charges more." Another long pause. "How do you know about Melissa?" "I saw you paying her at Cornerstone Coffee last week," I said. $500, you said, worth every penny." "You were spying on me?" Her voice took on that defensive edge I knew well. "No, I was working there. You happened to come in." I took a deep breath. "Jenna, you've been paying a stranger hundreds of dollars a week while making me feel guilty for not watching your kids for free. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel?" "That's different," she said quickly. "Melissa is a professional childcare provider. This is her job." "And what am I?" I asked, my voice finally betraying my hurt. "Just your free backup, the reliable little sister who'll drop everything when you call? Don't you value my time at all?" "Of course I do," she exclaimed. "But you're family. Family helps family. That's what we do." "Funny how that rule only seems to apply to me helping you," I said. "When was the last time you rearranged your schedule to help me with something important?" She didn't have an answer for that. "Look," I continued, trying to keep my voice level. "I love Emma and Liam, I really do. But I can't keep dropping everything to provide free childcare when you're willing to pay someone else for the same service. It's not fair and you know it." "So what? Now you're going to charge your own sister for watching your own niece and nephew?" The guilt trip was starting, right on schedule. "Yes," I said simply, "because my time is valuable too, just like Melissa's." "I can't believe this," Jenna said. "You're really going to do this to me when I'm desperate?" I closed my eyes, steeling myself against the familiar wave of guilt. "I'm not doing anything to you, Jenna. I'm just setting a boundary. $25 an hour, or you can try to find someone else on short notice." "Fine," she snapped. "I'll pay you, but this conversation isn't over." She hung up before I could respond. An hour later, Jenna arrived at my apartment with the kids in tow. Her face was a mask of controlled anger as she handed me a wad of cash. "This should cover it," she said coldly. "I'll be back at 5. I nodded, taking the money without counting it. "We'll be here." The day with the kids was wonderful as always. We made cookies, built a fort, and read their favorite stories. They didn't seem to notice the tension between their mother and me, and I was grateful for that. When Jenna returned, precisely at 5 p.m. first, her demeanor was still frosty. She barely spoke as the kids gathered their things, only asking if everything went okay. "We had a great time," I said, handing her back $50 from what she'd given me. "This is too much." She looked at the money, then at me, confusion replacing some of the anger in her eyes. "I thought you wanted to be paid." "I do, at a fair rate for the actual hours I worked, not overcharged because you're angry." She took the money slowly, seeming unsure how to respond. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of shame cross her face, but it was quickly replaced by her usual composure. "Come on, kids, time to go," she said, avoiding my eyes. As they left, Emma turned to wave goodbye. "See you next time, Aunt Sarah." "See you next time, sweetie," I replied, wondering if there would be a next time. The fallout was immediate and exactly what I'd expected. Jenna didn't call for babysitting for weeks. Our mom called to ask what was going on between us. Even our middle sister, who lived out of state and rarely got involved in family drama, texted to check if everything was okay. I didn't regret standing up for myself, but I missed the kids terribly. I wondered if Jenna would ever forgive me for demanding what anyone else would consider completely reasonable, fair compensation for my time. Then, about a month after our confrontation, I received a text from Jenna that surprised me. "Can we talk? In person, just us?" We met at a quiet cafe near her office. She arrived looking uncharacteristically nervous, none of her usual confidence on display. "I need to apologize," she said before I could even say hello. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation, and you were right. I've been taking advantage of you." I was so surprised I couldn't speak for a moment. "I think I just got used to you always being there, always saying yes," she continued, "and somewhere along the way I started to feel entitled to your time, like it wasn't as valuable as mine because you weren't married or didn't have kids." "That hurt," I admitted. "A lot." She nodded, looking genuinely regretful. "I know. And I'm truly sorry. The thing is, when you called me out, my first reaction was anger. But then I started thinking about how I'd feel if someone treated me the way I've been treating you." "And?" I prompted when she paused. "And I'd be furious," she admitted. "I'd feel used and undervalued, which is exactly how I made you feel." She reached across the table and took my hand. "Sarah, you've been amazing with Emma and Liam. They love you so much, and I've been completely unfair to you." "I love them too," I said softly. "That's never been the issue." "I know. The issue was me not respecting your time and work." She squeezed my hand. "I want to make it right. If you're still willing to watch the kids sometimes, I'll pay you properly, the same rate I pay Melissa." "You don't have to do that," I started, but she cut me off. "Yes, I do. Because family helps family doesn't mean family exploits family. It took me too long to see the difference." We talked for almost 2 hours that day about boundaries and respect and what we both needed from our relationship going forward. It wasn't a perfect conversation. Old patterns are hard to break, but it was honest in a way we hadn't been with each other in years. In the months since then, things have changed between us. I still watch Emma and Liam regularly, but now Jenna pays me fairly. More importantly, she asks rather than demands, gives me advance notice when possible, and respects when I say I can't do it. My photography business has flourished with the consistent income and the ability to actually keep my appointments. I've even been able to save enough to upgrade my camera equipment and take some professional development courses. But the biggest change isn't financial, it's in how I feel about myself. Standing up to Jenna was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it taught me that setting boundaries doesn't mean losing relationships. Sometimes it means strengthening them. The other day, Jenna surprised me by showing up at one of my gallery showings, the first time my photography was being featured in a local art space. She brought flowers and hugged me tight. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "Your work is amazing." Later, as we shared a glass of wine, she confessed something. "You know, I used to be a little jealous of you." "Of me?" I asked, genuinely shocked. "Why?" "Because you're pursuing your passion," she said. "I got so caught up in what I thought success should look like that I forgot to ask myself what I actually wanted." She smiled ruefully, "And then I took it out on you by devaluing what you do." It was a moment of vulnerability I'd never expected from my seemingly perfect older sister. As for Emma and Liam, they're thriving. They still love our time together, and now I'm able to be fully present with them without resentment lurking in the background. Last week, Emma told me she wants to be a photographer just like Aunt Sarah when she grows up. Jenna sent me a photo of Emma with my old point-and-shoot camera carefully composing a shot of her stuffed animals. I'm not saying everything is perfect now. Jenna still slips into her controlling habits sometimes, and I occasionally struggle to speak up when I should. We're both works in progress. But we're making progress, and that's what matters. So if you're reading this and recognizing yourself, if you're the family member everyone relies on but doesn't always appreciate, know that you deserve respect. Your time is valuable, your work is valuable, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for your family is to say, I'd be happy to help. Here's my rate. Because real family support goes both ways. It's mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. It took both Jenna and me too long to learn that lesson. But I'm grateful we finally did.